Ready for a change?
I am talking to you.
Then get ready to explore the quantum possibilities. It's time to transform that outdated paradigm into something universal and new. Time to uncover the truth hidden beneath the veil of lies. A time to think outside the box as we link to a higher consciousness. Welcome to the awakening. And now the hosts of Broadcast Team Alpha, Nori Love and Augie Nost.
Well, hello, radiant beings. It's Tuesday night. Yay! Broadcast Team Alpha coming to you once again from KCOR Studios. And you can hear some of our older work on Broadcast Team Alpha YouTube channel. And actually there's some videos in there if you want to see some really funny stuff about when Augie and I were kind of young pups. And a lot of really great topics, a lot of really great interviews there. But how are you guys? Shout out to our awesome chat room. So glad you guys are all here with us. How's it going? It's a little cray-cray, right? This crazy stuff going on. I mean, with this virus, and everybody's like, no, it's not much of anything, but there's a whole lot of, states of emergency going on. But not to really focus on that, because where we place our focus on the things that we desire, on our intentions, and as we focus on it and embody it, right, as impeccable in our thought, word, and deed related to it, to the intention, to our desire, that's what keeps us safe and sound and happy and expanding in light and consciousness. Fear is such a low vibration energy. And although we can't erase fear, we can replace it. We can replace it by casting our focus on the highest and most beneficial desires that make sense to us for ourselves. Anyway, that's my small soapbox for tonight. We have a really, really great guest for tonight. And Augie, I hear you there. How are you?
Yes, I am somewhere between wonderful and fantastic, and I don't know which one is closest. So yeah, I'm doing fine.
Oh, what a dilemma.
Yeah, what's a dilemma? I tell you, we have a gentleman with us that actually we have known of each other for probably over a decade. We were kind of circling around and never really gotten to do anything together before. Right now, we're going to do a radio show. And his name is Zen Benefiel. And Zen is one of those people who stepped out of the box decades ago and probably turned around and torched it while he was knowing that there is no getting back in the box again. And he can prove it, because I find about 15 books that he has written, all on what's outside of the box. And he has written on science and spirituality, who we are, the God particle, Council of 300 Galactic Federation, and about something that would relate to first contact and maybe what our civilization would be after first contact. Now, his last book, 0 to 1, is about us rising as a civilization from a civilization 0 to a civilization 1, as Michio Kaku talk about it. He's also a hypnotherapist, a life coach, and a contactee and experiencer, and speak of star family encounters on many levels. He produced and hosted 121 world TV shows, and he's constantly connecting people and sharing information so we can advance up the conscious evolutionary ladder. And even dogs will advance with us. So, hey, I salute them.
That's Pixie. Sorry, guys.
That's all right. And while we're listening to him, it's we are going to find some things in that will probably help us to advance a little bit faster ourselves. And with that, welcome to the show, Zen.
Well, thank you, Augie.
Welcome, Zen. Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here. And let's, a lot of the things you mentioned are true. And there's some additional things on the more practical and pragmatic side. I've got a couple of master's degrees in business. I have an MA in organizational management and an MBA in project management.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. And the thing is that your resume was so long that I would be talking for 20 minutes, and I figured I have to cut it short somewhere.
I still haven't figured out what I want to do when I grow up, and I'm not even sure I want to grow up.
No, I think growing up is voluntary, but growing old may be mandatory, but growing up could be voluntary.
You know, it's all attitude, and I love playing. You know, stuff can be serious enough, like Nori was mentioning, you know, with the kind of the things that are going on around the world now with the concerns for this virus and things, and totally understandable. You know, we get hit with new things, and as processes and things unfold, especially with the Earth changes, and you know, from a science standpoint, when the permafrost starts unfreezing, it releases organisms. That may have nothing to do with the coronavirus, but it is something that we need to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and now your last book now about advancing from civilization 0, which most people consider us to be, and up to civilization 1. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about what is a civilization 0 where we are, and what would we be like if we were at a civilization 1, and when we, not if, but when we arrive.
Sure. The last question is going to be a nebulous answer. The beginning of it, though, these scales comes from the Russian scientist called Kardashev. And he came up with scales of planetary evolution, basically focused on our ability to use or access energy. And 0, basically, we're operating on fossil fuels or something unnatural. A type 1 civilization utilizes the planet's energy for everything. Type 2 utilizes the solar system's energy. Type 3 utilizes galactic energy. So we could infer by those definitions that there is much more available, whether it's travel in the solar system or even intergalactic travel that also comes along with that, as well as a state of evolutionary consciousness that is able to comprehend just how that all works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think, too, that as long as the conscious evolution maybe should stay a little bit ahead of the technical evolution, would you think?
You know, I'm reluctant to shoot on myself or others. However, I would agree that it would be better to have an evolution of consciousness prior to technological development, because we can be real idiots and misuse things without really being aware that we're doing it to begin with.
We've proven that.
Well, you know, that's how, you know, you got to consider the evolution of a planetary civilization. We've just come out of the industrial age where we discovered and utilized and created and innovated and did all kinds of things without really thinking about the future and what effects those things might have on it. And now we're realizing that, maybe we are contributing to the global warming, not the cause, because there's, you know, very much there's a lot of evidence regarding natural planetary cycles that we have to consider. But we certainly aren't mitigating those factors by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is in that process of evolving, we're learning how to think, how to perceive, how to observe. Most of the time, we tend to want to project our belief systems on things that we discover, not necessarily realizing that we do it, but we've got these intrinsic, from personal experience, cultural, families, church, genetic, creeds and memes, going back to Sheldrake's work and how he discovered, or at least presented, that, there are ways that we have these cultural and even genetic memories. And it only stands to reason that when you experience something over a period of time through, the lineages and the bloodlines, that all these things are going to be resident in our genetic codes. And then we have choices as to whether to continue with them or to change how we think. Mm-hmm. These are the most important things that I think in moving from a type 0 to 1 is thinking.
Yeah.
Being aware of not just what we think, but how we think.
So just could you clarify, just for anybody who's coming in now or we who don't know, the 0 to 1, what exactly that is quantifying or symbolizing?
Well, it's symbolizing the movement from where we are to where we want to be, our next level, as far as the Kardashev scale is concerned, moving from a 0 to a type 1 civilization that's able to utilize the planetary energy. And along with that comes a consciousness that is able to manage that effectively. We haven't even come, you ever hear of the job description called planetary administrator? That may come as a result.
That's cool.
Right? Yeah, it may not be just one.
I'm sure there will be a few. Yeah, of course, I guess it would look good on your resume, possibly.
Well, I've got possibilities coagulator on mine. That it was a moniker that a client gave to me. His name's Dudley Lynch. He's the president for Brain Technologies, Inc. And I did some work with him over a decade ago. And he wrote a recommendation for me. And one of the things he labeled me was a possibilities coagulator. And I thought, wow, that's unique.
Yeah.
Talk about a differentiator.
Yeah. When we're talking from going from a 0 to a 1 now, how do you feel that we are advancing so far? We are advancing. There's no question of that. But how do you think? What do you think that consciousness is catching up, or maybe not?
Oh, I believe it's catching up. And let me give you just a quick reference involving the calendars and the conversation I had with Jose Arguez, in the mid-90s. And Jose basically, for those who aren't aware, brought the Mayan calendar to the northern hemisphere and the rest of the world. And the Mayan calendar, Sumerian, Egyptian, Hindu are all correlating a particular time. And in the reference to the changing of ages from the Piscean to the Aquarian age, which we're right in the middle of, there, according to Jose and his interpretation of the Mayan calendar, there was a window that opened up during what he called the harmonic convergence in 1987. It's a 50-year window so do the math, right? We still got some time. Now, one of the relevant benchmarks in that was the winter solstice of 2012. And if you consider the rise of consciousness, of awareness that we've gone through in that first 25 years, it probably parallels the information curve. And I'm sure folks are familiar with that, where it's almost perpendicular now because we're acquiring so much information on a daily basis. Now, we also can increase our awareness exponentially on a daily basis too. Now, what the solstice did, according to Jose, and we had a really wonderful conversation about this, and it really makes sense. So once that apex is reached, as far as the awareness and the consciousness. And there's a level that, okay, we've gone this far. Now what do we do with it? Right? How do we make it practical? So in the follow-up years, we implement that awareness and consciousness back into the existing systems, realigning them, and maybe even creating some new systems on a more holistic level that connects everything, and move forward with that to a place where we're able to integrate the understanding, the technology, the planetary administration, the earth sciences and everything, and be able to manage ourselves much better so that we don't destroy things that we love.
I think that that advancement doesn't come with knowledge, it comes with wisdom. Because knowledge...
True, and here's the wisdom that I was going to relate to, is in that, and this is how we can observe the process. We look at the condition of the world right now. So the first 7 to 10 years of this transition period will be chaos, because everything that doesn't fit is going to naturally rise to the surface for us, not only to observe, but to be able to facilitate change within ourselves first, and also the environment by how we act. Nori mentioned something earlier that I see the same thing that you spoke of as far as intentions and actions as attention, intention, and action. Those three things combined, when we can, and this is a tough one to do, but we can still ourselves. So what I mean by that is just to shut up, be quiet.
Hurry up and do nothing.
We have a tendency, because we're so intelligent, we want to answer our own questions with what we have on the shelf. And those shelves aren't complete. So as we acquire new information, and basically what I do in the book, it started out, it's kind of funny. Ray Hernandez asked me to write a chapter for the next edition of the Foundation for Research in Extraterrestrial Encounters, is what the original name of the organization was. But they put out one book called Beyond UFOs, and their second one was to be a compilation of experiencers and PhDs and things of that nature, all answering 3 questions. And those 3 questions are: what is non-human intelligence? What is the relationship between consciousness, our cosmology, and contact with non-human intelligence via the contact modalities? And I explain more of what those are in the book. Is there a possible unification theory of the paranormal contact modalities? Are all the contact modalities interrelated? So this was supposed to be no more than a 40-page chapter. And I couldn't resist. I synopsized the 40. I expanded on it to include information that talks about each of the contact modalities. I go over the chakra system, and the Chinese Datun system, and how those all kind of fit together. And then I have my favorite in there, which I call the clairauls, which are all the different clairsenses, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and those types of things.
Yeah.
And each of us have these systems operational. Now, we aren't necessarily consciously aware of it. And that's part of what the growth in self-awareness is all about, is being able to reach a place where you're somewhat calm and collected and able to just observe how you're thinking, what you're thinking, and what's happening around you as a result.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that we do that, my wife Luba and I, we'll sit out on the back porch and we'll be involved in really deep conversations, which are usual. And we will begin to look around and we'll notice birds, animals, sounds in the neighborhood, wind, things that just, if you weren't observing things from that place, you wouldn't even notice it because they're so subtle.
Mm. Yeah, and when you're talking about these different modalities and understanding of what is, chances are that maybe could that be a two different sides of the same coin, since quantum physics tells us we live in a mind-created universe, so everything is an expression of the same thing, but it just looks and feels different. Could
Again, the attention, intention, and action, it's all part of the same creation.
So that's law of attraction, right?
Absolutely.
Right there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Law of attraction is the application of experiential quantum physics.
Right. I like that.
Yeah.
So maybe when we come back from the break, we have 3 minutes to the break. Would you be open to talking about your contact experience, or is that something we have to read the book for?
No, I'm wide open. I'm pretty transparent online, offline. Ask me a question, you're going to get an answer. You may not understand it, which I'll try to recognize and say it different ways. I spent a lot of years as an educator, so there's all kinds of different audiences that you have to speak to. And as a marketer, you've got to understand your audience and give them the message that they're listening for first. Then you can take them wherever you need to.
Yeah. And another thing that I would love to get into, because you have studied the issue of extraterrestrial consciousness even, and how they operate more than most people. Could we talk
I haven't necessarily
about
studied it, Augie. It's been part of my life. I've had to figure it out.
Uh-huh. But let's talk a little bit about their consciousness. How do they think? What do they look at us to be? Why are they coming here possibly, and for what reason? It is for our benefit, or maybe for just their own benefit? And I would love to talk a little bit about that. In fact, I would love to hear from the listeners and see what they have any questions on this, because this is such a question and such an issue that is becoming more and more relevant the closer we get to this thing where they are being known to be here.
Sure. And I consider it more, instead of an issue, it's more personal. It's an me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing that I've noticed is there's a lot of discussion on social media of people, making contact with, I'm seeing a lot about the Pleiadians. And of course, we have the Pleiadian Mastermind on Sundays that we'll tell you more about. But we've got 30 seconds before we have to say goodbye for a minute. And we'll be back on the other side of the break.
This is the Broadcast Team Alpha Show, hosted by Nori Love and Augie Nost. The one show that takes your doubts of the unknown and spins them into reality. Share your thoughts by calling our hotline number at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Call now.
Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More cutting-edge conversation and exploration of the quantum universe after this.
30
seconds and counting.
Broadcasting to you from another planet, beaming you a world of entertainment.
This is the world-famous KCOR. Now listen live online at KCORradio.com.
I like everything about this station.
When do I listen? Like 24 hours a day.
It's my favorite station. I just love the music. It keeps me going at work.
If ever a breed was affectionate to a fault, it's the Golden Retriever. They're people dogs, pure and simple. And the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada needs your help. If you would like to volunteer, foster, adopt, or donate, go to the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada's website at grrsn.org. That's grrsn.org. Or call 598-GOLD. That's 598-GOLD.
Looking for a radio show like no other?
We need something brand new.
Then tune into the KCOR Digital Radio Network, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and get ready for The Quantum Shift. A great shift of consciousness is sweeping across the Earth. Are you ready for the dimensional shift?
It is amazing, is it not?
The Quantum Shift. Quantum Shift. Quantum Shift. Hosted by Dr. Sam Muggsy and Kent Dunn. Be part of the fifth dimensional reality, where consciousness prevails and the universal law of one is the only true reality. The Quantum Shift. Quantum Shift. Quantum Shift. Live Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Going live.
Come explore the quantum possibilities. This is Broadcast Team Alpha. Broadcast Team Alpha. To be on the show live, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. Share your thoughts of the show on Twitter at KCOR Radio, #KCOR. Or join the cutting edge conversation live in our chat room at KCORradio.com. Now back to Broadcast Team Alpha with your free thinking hosts, Nori Love and Augie Nast.
Yay, we're back. So the chat room kind of perked up a little bit there. Good to see everybody. A big shout out to Iowa Girl, Rob, Rami, Summer, Yappy, Margaret, Naj. Oh my God, the world famous Tina is there. Madeline, Karen, JC, Crowman, Arizona Rock. Hi, everybody. So good to see you all. So where were we? I think we were about to talk about contact stuff, right?
Yes, we were.
We were. Yeah. Ooh.
Where did that start for you?
Yeah, really young, actually. I was adopted and found out I was when my adopted sister was brought home. I was 4.5. And so my parents decided to tell me what that was about, which even at that age left me with some really serious questions. And those questions led to one evening, I was waiting for my dad to come home from the store, and it was dark out. I was hanging out on the landing of the stairway, looking out over the front porch. There was a small window. I had my elbows in the windowsill and my chin on my hands. And all of a sudden, I hear this big booming voice say, "Hey, you." And it was so loud that I instantly turned around and asked my mother, who was sitting at the bottom of the stairs on the couch watching TV, and it definitely wasn't from the TV. And I spun around and asked her, I said, "Mom, did you hear that voice?" She goes, "No, what voice?" I said, "That voice." It says, "Hey, you." And she said, "No, it must have been a peeping Tom," and just blew it off. Mm. And I knew better. And so I developed a conversation with this voice. It felt familiar. And so who was I to argue? And it was there.
It was where? It was there.
Yeah, it was there.
It was there, yeah.
When you hear these things, they're undeniable.
Yeah.
So, and over time, then next couple of years, we moved into a house. I had my own, in my bedroom. I would stand in front of my window at night with the lights on, reflection on the window, so I couldn't see outside, and I would project this voice and how I heard it telepathically, and I would wait for the return. And I'd send the energy out, and I'd wait, and I would feel this wave of energy and a return of it. And so from that point, after, you know, it's like dealing with your fear of the unknown or the fear of darkness. Mm-hmm. And as I got used to that, the fear became less and less, and I engaged the conversation more and more. And, I want to say 7.5, I began having out-of-body experiences. The first one, I came home one Saturday afternoon, tired from playing with the kids in the neighborhood, laid out across the bed, and just all of a sudden, you know, I wasn't thinking. I was just relaxing, taking some breaths, and I felt myself starting to lift up. And I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And it was a little, it felt a little precarious, you know, and it's like, what's going on? Am I dying? And the voice said, just relax, just breathe, relax, and let go. So I did. And I popped out of my body. All of a sudden, I'm on my ceiling looking back at my body on my bed.
Wow. And
so, you know, I began having these opportunities at night, you know, right before I'd go to sleep in that, I guess, semi-luminal state in between consciousness and sleep. And then about a year later, shortly after my 8th birthday, I woke up in the middle of the night, or thought I woke up, but I was up in the corner of my bedroom looking at my physical body. Oh. And so, you know, that was natural. I'd been there before, and it's like, okay. But then I watched my body get out of bed, open my bedroom window, climb out, walk across the neighbor's backyard, climb a fence, and walk out into this 10-acre pasture that lived in rural Indiana at the time. And our addition was right on the edge of farmland. So as I'm walking out into this field, I look up, and there's this orange cigar-shaped cloud that's got to be at least a half a mile long, and could be more. And my physical body started to rise up into the air. And as I would watch it, I kind of followed it up, and as we got to the edge of this orange cloud, I started to go in it, and my observer self would link up with the physical body, and then I'd wake up in bed the next morning. And this happened at least twice a month for a couple of years. And every time I would come back, it was, I couldn't wait to go back. It was like I'd been with family that I didn't know yet. Mm-hmm. Right? It was that comfortable. Occasionally I'd wake up with a nosebleed, and never thought anything more about it. Didn't talk to anybody until just getting ready to move to Arizona at 23, and I was walking through a metaphysical bookstore in Muncie, Indiana, just not too far from where I grew up. And this book falls off the shelf in front of me. Nobody else in the aisle, and in either aisle on either side of it. And I walk over, and the book's cover up, and it's Ruth Montgomery's Strangers Among Us.
Oh, yeah.
And I pick the book up, and I turn it over, and my eyes are drawn to this paragraph that, paraphrased, basically said, the most common contactee experiences in the late 50s and early 60s in the Midwest was the orange cigar-shaped cloud. And at that point, I was speechless. You know, it's like, oh man, that's really cool. What do I do with that? So in between that time, I had been in college. I started at a pre-med program, tested out 5 quarters of all the general education stuff. I was kind of a brainiac. And my second quarter, I started with this really kind of depression over going back to ask a high school girlfriend to marry me and find out she was already married. So I went back to school with a broken heart, and I hit my knees and I prayed. And I said, Father, what, I want to know what truth is, and I'm willing to die for it if necessary. And I meant that with every ounce of my being. And the following week, Tuesday afternoon, 11/11/1975. Now, for all I know, it could have been 2:22 in the afternoon. I really didn't keep track of that, but I know it was mid-afternoon. So I'm laying on my bed listening to Journey's first album, doing my afternoon album side meditation before doing schoolwork. And in between the vocals and the vamp on the second song called In Morning Day, this voice, my given name is Bruce. So the voice is, Bruce, are you willing to die for what you believe in? And talk about the ultimate butt pucker. Wow, my whole body just clenched. It's like, okay, what do I believe in? And my first thought was Christ consciousness. And I sat with that for a moment, and it didn't feel complete. I didn't question it, just dismissed it, and went to the next, cosmic consciousness. Paused, felt complete. Yes. And at that point, there was a guitar riff that sounded like a rocket ship taking off, and out of my body I went. Turned to look at my body laying across the dorm room bed, turned back to look where I was going, and before I could even get turned around, I was engulfed by white light. No tunnel, no nothing, just pure white light. And it felt so amazing.
Yeah.
And as soon as I went into it, I realized I could still think. So that told me, hey, I'm not dead. And so I remained there for a little bit, kind of acclimating, still, thinking maybe my eyesight, I'll be able to see something, and nothing happened. And so the impetuous teenager kicked in, and wow, is there more? This is boring, right? And so I feel a movement, and I'm in this indigo background scenery with points of light surrounding me. And my first question was, what are these? And the immediate answer was points of consciousness. And I thought, okay, I don't know if they're in body or not, because I'm surely not. But I had the sense that they probably were. And then the voice picked back up and told me that these are those that I'm to work with in order to facilitate a new world order. And went on to explain, to trust and allow and do all those kinds of things. But it did not mean that I'm this ultimate flag waver. The operating word was facilitate. So this is everybody working together. We each have a piece. We just got to figure out what it is and how to plug it in. And so I've spent 45 years, 50, okay, so I was 18, I'm 62. So I've spent that many years trying to figure it out still. And that's what many of the books came from. I've had questions. I've had multiple contacts. I've had them show up in my bedroom holographically. I've been taken on board ship and experienced what many, I guess, reply or perceive as kind of frightening.
Well, what's the New World Order? What was that?
The New World Order is one of harmony among people and planet.
Okay, because there's other definitions for that. Yeah.
Oh, I know, and that's the contrast. It's the 1,000 points of light and all that kind of stuff that's been used as the facade for the old world order, trying to dress itself up as a new world order and say it's doing a good thing. Well, the systems that it's created aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's how they're managed that's the problem.
Yeah.
And that's what the implementation of the awareness and consciousness that we gained up to the solstice of 2012 is to shift. As we do that, because we can raise our consciousness, so what? What are we going to do as a result of that? How are we going to act? How are we going to behave towards each other? What kind of skill sets have we acquired in our lives to be able to implement towards something better?
That's
right?
important.
It's not about, it's a total utilization of the being, and it doesn't discount any of the skill sets or experiences or people that we've come across. There's this whole idea that within every adversity, there's a pearl. And we just have to be willing to stop, look, and listen as to what those pearls are, and then learn how to apply them. That's the wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
So how far up the ladder do you think we are so far? Have we gotten anywhere?
Well, where are we on a planetary scale as being able to take care of everybody? We're still fighting and arguing. We haven't learned how to get along. And this is what the guys or gals or, the non-human intelligence on all levels are trying to get us to realize is that, hey, we need to work on ourselves first, learn how to get along, and then everything else will roll out naturally. Yeah. We're trying to put the cart in front of the horse. Mm-hmm. This is what you mentioned earlier about, the technology getting ahead of the intelligence.
Yeah. When you was meeting up with this cigar cloud, were you able? Did you ever remember getting into it and meeting someone, or have a contact of something there that you can remember?
During that period, no. From there, multiple occasions, from dreams, from little snippets. I mean, we can have nonlinear and non-local moments that just take nanoseconds, a blink of an eye, and we'll get an entire thought form of, okay, here. And so then it's like, okay, now what do I do with that? Right? So that gives you more information to ask intelligent questions about, not be fearful of. Right? Fear is just false evidence appearing real, and it's a door you knock on and you walk through and you just figure it out because there's nothing to be afraid of.
Did you or do you think that there's something pertinent to being adopted and your experiences?
Oh, absolutely. It gave me the impetus to ask the deeper questions that very few people ask. Because they don't need to. Mm-hmm. They know where they came from. They know what their biological lineage is.
Right.
And for a long time, because of my own personal experience and what I was hearing from others, and even, some psychics and channelers had said to me that I'm not from here. So I had, I thought, well, maybe I'm one of those that, I know back in the late 80s, I think there was a big flap of information about infants being dropped off to parents in the Pacific Northwest, that kind of stuff. So I thought, well, maybe I am one. Well, my wonderful wife, Luba, got me a subscription for Ancestry.com for our first Christmas, and that was in 2017. And in January 2019, my half-sister appeared, and so I got reconnected with my birth mother. Oh. And we spent a week with her. Very open, intelligent woman. But the interesting part of it was as I peered into the depths of what that was all about, my father's name was Lee Carlisle, and I remembered meeting a man here in Phoenix. Now, I grew up in Indiana. They lived in Anderson, Indiana. I'm in Phoenix now. And in the fall or winter of 1988, I met this guy named Lee Carlisle at a UFO discussion group.
Wow.
He lived in Prescott. He invited me up to stay a weekend at his cabin and attend some discussion group there with abductees. That's what they were being called at the time. And, I just knew I had a resonance with him. Never thought that was my dad. Turned out it was.
Get out.
Wow. Wow. Oh, that's no coincidence.
No, absolutely not. So there are really not. Synchronicities abound. This is part of what self-awareness is about, is be able to recognize the subtle signs around you and give them attention.
Wow.
So yeah, my life is it's been a magical mystery tour forever. Even meeting my wife, she's from St. Petersburg, Russia.
Oh.
She is an amazing conservatory trained pianist and music teacher, a music theory teacher. And I met her at her Kundalini yoga teacher training graduation because this was set up 2 weeks earlier. I was invited to a outdoor music festival, went there to listen to a friend of mine's band that I would not listen to inside because of their cacophonous music, but he was a friend, so I told him I'd show up. Met another guy who was also in this program, and he eventually invited me to the graduation. And when he invited me, I don't normally go to those things, but my heart, I just felt like, okay, I need to be there. So I went.
Good thing you went.
When she walked in front of me, my heart literally flipped in my chest. Now, 3 weeks before that, I had a dream of hugging a woman and completely merging with her. And it was the most amazing feeling that I carried for a week or so afterwards. And, it led to the reality of us recognizing that we are what many people call twin flames. We think, we act, we finish within a short amount of time, it was just obviously apparent of how connected we were. Now we had to work out some of the personality details because of how we listened to each other, because she listened in Russian, I listened in American, right? And Russian culture is much different than American culture. And so there's ways that you listen to things and then have to realize, wait a minute, I misunderstood you, or you misunderstood me, and go through all those things of having to work those details out, which even married couples that have been together forever still have a hard time doing. Right. And so we've worked through all of those, not all of them, but the majority of them. And our life together has just become amazing because of the first time that I invited her over. You mentioned I'm a hypnotherapist, so I'd asked her if she'd had any contact before, and she said, yeah, there's this one guy, and she described a gray, and a tall gray. And I said, would you like to meet him? And she kind of looked at me and like, huh? And I said, yeah, I'm serious. And she goes, yeah. And I said, okay, just lay back, close your eyes, relax, and let me guide you through it. And the first thing she saw was this room full of cherubic-looking characters that were bouncing around, dancing, all happy. And, and I said, okay, so ask your guy to step forward and introduce himself. So he steps up and introduces himself as Nick. And so I say, okay, would you ask him to show you his true? And she says, he's a gray. I didn't even get to finish the question, and he changed form to show her who he really was. So they've had her up on the ship. She'll have dreams some nights that she's introduced to, she's kind of treated a little special and acknowledged by them, just as I have been over the years.
Yep. Hypnosis can do amazing things.
Used correctly, it can. And it's all just giving the person a safe space to explore themselves and not giving them at least too leading a question. This is one thing I have kind of a bone with the guys that do regressions and the leading questions. And
yeah, you can't lead. Well, you can, but it's just.
Well, I've had a face-to-face conversation with David Jacobs and led him down the path to be able to say, oh yeah, other things are possible, and he would not even go there. And I'm standing right in front of him. Evidence. I consciously remember. I don't need regressions.
Mm-hmm. Now I see we got 3 minutes left of the show, and we're getting down to the end here.
We still got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So I did radio for years. There's a lot of stuff you can do in 3 minutes.
Yeah, you're right.
So when these things are happening, you have to be able to just pause, put the fear button on pause, and just breathe and relax and acquiesce to the situation. And I will guarantee no harm will come. I'll stake my life on it. Have many times over. Yeah. When you're rising through those planes of consciousness, you go into those places where you have to question yourself. Am I dying? Because there's this release of the attachment to whatever physicality you're leaving. And those layers have different layers of physicality, finer and finer forms, all the way up to that pure consciousness in the white light.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a great technique that William Swigart developed back in the 1950s called multi-plane awareness. And your listeners can look that up online. His name's, again, William Swigart. And it is a facilitated practice that takes a person through multiple planes of consciousness. And you can call your body forth, integrate with it, move up, go clear up. The 12th plane is always the white light. There's more beyond that, right? We start at the 3rd, so that you go up through the 4th through the 12th, so there's 9 planes there. And I find it interesting that Nepean Close's triadic dimensional distinction vorticular paradigm also echoes the 9 planes and consciousness being tethered.
Yep, we got
across space and time.
30 seconds left, so let people know where they can get a hold of you.
Oh, just go to Google. I've got all kinds of things. I've got multiple websites on various topics, from professional to esoteric.
Okay.
ZenBenefiel.com would be the most obvious, of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
You've been listening to Broadcast Team Alpha.
Broadcast Team Alpha.
Hosted by Nori Love and Augie Nost. Every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The balance of power is shifting to a new paradigm. Will you be ready? For more information on Broadcast Team Alpha, as well as the hosts Nori Love and Augie Nost, please visit their website at broadcastteamalpha.com. Until next week, remember to keep those minds open while always exploring the endless quantum possibilities.
Broadcast Team Alpha. Over and out.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.